And we're back. So this is the third video that I'm going to produce for today in relation to lighting and shading. Okay, and this one actually has more to do with rendering. Now this little window that you see here in front of us, this is the interactive photorealistic view. Okay, now I haven't really covered how to bring this up. I showed one or two people in class the other day, but everybody wasn't there, so I'm going to just use this video to show this. Now you'll notice that it is actually still rendering. Down the bottom left here, you'll see that it's still rendering, and it does it in block form. Normally in you can actually set this to do it randomly or in a circular motion, but you'll see that some of it looks extremely well rendered and some of it is still very pixely, and that's because it's doing it in blocks as it goes. So it's just about here at the moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close that. It does take a while depending on the amount of detail you have and the type of lighting and even the shaders that you've used as regards their reflectivity and refractivity. It can take a long time to render one of those frames. That's nearly done now, but I'm going to close it and I'm going to show you how we get to it from scratch. Okay, so this actually looks quite good as it is to be working in this view, because we're just using general kind of scene lighting, but a lot of the textures are in place, so it looks quite good. It's only when you see the photorealistic view that you can see, oh yeah, that still looks a bit computery. So what we do is this: we go over to our drop down menu and we choose rendering, and then we go on up to render, okay, and then render settings. Now here we go. So what we're going to be using this for is we want to be able to export various still frames and then eventually our animation at a particular resolution and size. And we do this, as you know, it doesn't export video, it exports a series of JPEG images, right? So, well, we'll be using JPEG. So ideally here, I just want to go through some of these settings and show you how we'll be setting them. Now, because our animations aren't going to be very long, we're okay choosing our Arnold renderer. Now, there's a few other options here, and I mentioned them a few times, but the one we'll be using is Arnold. For what we're doing, it will be fine. If we were producing really long videos, we may not have the time to render these, but the machines that we're using this year are much more sophisticated than they have been previously, so we can comfortably use the Arnold renderer. It does take longer, but it also looks a lot better. But for what we're using, it's okay this year. Previous years we wouldn't have been able to use it. So let's look at some of the settings here. Okay, we're in the common tab. Now the Arnold tab has some very specific settings here. We're not going to play with these. The higher these go, the more realistic the scene might become, but it will also it increases the render time massively. So we're going to leave all these as they are. That video that I showed you as we flew through this room, these were all up around 6 and 7, but it took something like 40 minutes to render each of the frames. Okay, so we're not doing that. We're going to leave them as they are. So let's look at what we're going to do here. Okay, so we haven't set a file name prefix at the moment. Okay, we do want our file type to be JPEG. We always set the quality to 100. What's next that's important to us? We've got start frames and end frames on this. Right now, this animation, if I'm not mistaken, is 1798 frames. Oh no, this is the other one I cut down. Oh yeah, it's only 261. Originally that fly through I showed you was nearly 1800 frames. It took weeks to render, but I've cut this one down. I deleted all the other rooms. So if you were making, let's say, an animation that had 300 frames, you would put one in here and you'd put 300 in there. Now I can't put 300 in there. I can only put in 261 or it'll give me back an error. So what this is basically doing is it's going to, if I was to set this running now, it would try and render all 261 frames, okay? But we're not going to be doing that. Here we would choose the camera that we want to render from. Now, there's a number of different cameras that have been chosen. The one I'm looking through at the moment, if I'm not mistaken, is camera 1. Could be perspective. I think it's actually perspective. Yeah, I'm looking through the perspective camera. Okay, so you would choose which camera. It's very possible, like there's another camera there. Let me just have a look and see which this one is. There's another camera there that's actually in the scene. I had at one stage about 4 or 5 cameras flying around in different directions. So what I could do was I could actually position 4 or 5 cameras, animate the 4 or 5 cameras going through the scene. And what I could then do is I could export all of the animations and then cut between them. So I could basically make a little movie in this instance, like a proper movie that had more than one take, if you know what I mean. But we're only going to be using the one camera for what we're doing, and it will almost always be our perspective camera, right? Our scene setting is going to be 1920 by 1080, so the actual capture size of the screen is going to be HD. Now the resolution is set at 300. That is way too high for what we'll be doing. That will probably be set at 72. It's going to be more than good enough for what we're doing. The reason I did 300 was absolutely awesome, but that's generally print quality and it's not required a lot of the time. It just does look really, really well. So that's most of the settings that we're going to need to adjust for this. You can see it's set at HD 1080. None of the rest of it we need to concern ourselves with. That will pretty much cover everything. There are no end of other settings. We do not need to concern ourselves with them. That will be everything as it is. Okay, so that's how we would set up the render settings for our scenes. I'm going to close that. Okay, now, so let's just say we wanted to have a look at that scene in photorealistic view and see what it looked like. We'd go up to Arnold and we go to Arnold render view. Okay, now by default, it's not running. There's two ways of running it. We can choose render and run IPR, or we can click play. Now, depending on the complexity of your scene, this could take anything up to a minute or 5 minutes to start showing some. Oh, but there we go. In this instance, it's actually not so bad. So what we can do is we can then zoom in and out of that to show the entire image if we wish, or we can just move in a little bit more, just basically to fill out the frame. So that's basically doing what it was doing when I started the video. It's beginning to, you can see in here, it's starting to look very clear around here, right? So that would give us a good idea of what our scene looks like. Now, because it's live, I can then move that light fitting. Now it is going to be dodgily slow because now every time I change anything in the scene, it automatically tries to re-render the scene. So if I was, let's say, if I wanted to see how something looked with lighting in it in a particular way, or I had 2 or 3 sets of lights and I wanted to move them around to get a particular angle, I would have this open as I'm moving the lights. Now it does slow down your machine because that's constantly working trying to render the scene. So what you can do is sometimes you can if you want, you can view it in a low quality mode as well if you want, but I normally like working on it like this because there's no point in bringing up something that's photorealistic in low quality. You may as well be looking at the other one, but this does reproduce the lighting as it's going to be in the scene. So that's what our scene would look like, and that's how we change our render settings. So if I wanted to actually export one of these scenes, right, or export one of these images, what I would do is this: I'll close that down, I go on up to render, and then I go down to batch render. And now normally if we had full versions of this, we'd be using render sequence, but we don't have a full version of it. We're render sequence, if your computer was fast enough, it will export your rendered frames and allow you to keep on working, but we can't do that because we're using the free version. So we go into batch render, we click on the little box, and then hopefully at some stage it's going to bring up, oh there it is, it's over. Nope. Okay, let me just see. Oh, there it is. Okay, yeah, okay. So this is just about to, assuming that we've gone into render settings, let me bring that back up again. We go into render settings and we say that we wanted to render from frame 1, let's say, to frame 1 to frame 5. Okay, so these are basically the settings for our render. This is what actually executes this. So we just confirm that it's going to be the perspective camera. We tell it where we want the renders to end up. Okay, so we just choose a folder, simple as that. And then we go down here and we click on render sequence. Okay, now, once we click on render sequence, that's us locked out of Maya. It will just start rendering. So there's not a lot we can do about that. So just for the hell of it, let's just say I wanted to render frame 261 and frame 261. So we're basically just going to do frame 261, right? Simple as that. No other frame, only 261. I'm going to make a folder on our desktop. Give us a second, actually. Let's just have a look. See, let's see if I can do this on the fly in behind everything. Okay, so the window's up there. Okay, so I'm going to open a folder now on my desktop. You can't see this happening, but trust me, it is. And I'm going to call it Maya test render. Okay, so I know that folder is there now. I go in here and I'm going to locate that folder. See, I'm working with 3 screens. We go to our desktop and let's scroll down. Maya test render, there it is. So we go select. Okay, now if I choose render sequence now, what it should do is oh sorry, the one other thing that you have to do is you'd normally name the default for what your frames are going to be. So normally speaking with something like this, I would try to leave the number at the end. So see that one there, name comma hashtag or name dot extension hashtag. What that basically means is if we set it at rendering 200 frames, what we do is we give it a name for the very first frame. So I'm going to call this, let's see, I'm going to call this test, right? And we go on in and we set a rule in here for what it's going to be. So if it was a single frame and we're only going to do a single frame, it will grey out an awful lot of these settings. But if we were going to do our full animation, let's say, we can go on in here and we can set this to name.extension.number hashtag. And what that will do is, it will call it test.jpeg1, test.jpeg 2, test.jpeg 3. We'd basically set the number for it. So in that instance, what we can do is we can basically tell it what we want it to be. So I can call it 001. And it will basically just start, everything after that is going to change the name of it. So so let me just see, sorry, pardon me. There you go. Okay, so ideally what it will do is it will call the first one test.001. And then the next one should be test 002, 003, 004, which means that we can then import them straight away into Premiere or whatever we wanted to do, and they'll already be in the sequence numbers. So that's kind of important. But look, for the moment, all we're going to do is we're just going to do a single frame on this, right? So let me have a look. See, 1 second. So JPEG, that's right. We don't need that. I'm gonna make sure all the rest of the settings are okay. We're out of here. Yeah, single frame. Okay, so we're just going to do our single frame, right? And the frame that we're going to choose is going to be 261. So that's the one we're on at the moment. You can see it down here. So with a bit of luck, when I click on render sequence, it should start rendering that frame into the folder I've chosen. Okay, now what you can see, and it's opened up in the other window, and of course it won't let me move it now, is it's opened a render window. So let me just see, and it's starting to build it. Now I can see it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and open a folder here for the desktop, and we called it Maya Test Render. Okay, so there it is. It's after putting the first image in there. Now unfortunately I can't show you because it's after opening up in my left hand window, but it's moving through at a fair pace. So if you hang on for a second, I'll wait till it's done and then I'll show it to you. I can't move the window while it's rendering. That's one of the other drawbacks of this. Normally once you start a render in Maya in the free version, it's done. Whatever is happening with it, you cannot touch. So you can't really move the window around. Ideally you should be able to, but it won't. It tends to suck up all the resources. So all I get is basically a spinny circle when I move up to the top bar and try and move it. So I'm not going to be able to do that. But this actually looks quite good, and it's actually happening really, really fast. When we were doing this a couple of years ago, the machines we were using were so bad. This frame that I'm going to show you in a minute probably would have taken half an hour. But it's more than 2/3 done at the moment. So I understand this is quite boring for you because you're not looking at anything. But I am looking at the image rendering in the left hand side. So as soon as it's done, I'll be able to double click on this file here and show it to you. Let me just see for a second if it'll even give us... Yeah, it's not going to give us a preview till it's done. Okay. So we're nearly done there now. Oh, hello. Now, that's it. Done, rendered. Isn't that nice? Okay, so let's just bring back up our folder and double click on it. And there it is, look. God knows what screen it's going to open in now. Okay. I don't know what application it's going to open in. It looked like it was going to try and do it in Paint or something like that. But it doesn't appear to want to open it at all. Open. Yeah, sick of it. Okay, so let's see if it will open in anything else. We'll try it in Paint. No, that's Photoshop. Okay. Well, no, if it opens in Photoshop, that will do. Basically, all we want to do is look at it, you know. Anything will do. That tends to happen when you're running Maya. Other pieces of software tend not to work. Now I'm also recording the video at the same time, so it doesn't surprise me that... Oh, hello. Here we go. There it is. Okay, so that's the image that it just exported. So if we were running an animation through that and we had 261 frames, and they'd all be of that quality, it would make for an extremely nice render, because that's actually done to a very, very nice quality. The nice shine on the desk is good. Now the lighting isn't very realistic. It looks like the thing on the wall is the light, but actually that's a clock. But what's happened is the light that I've put there is so close to the clock, it's actually washing it out. But it was only for a test. But you can see how good the quality is in a reasonably short space of time. It probably took 1.5 to 2 minutes to render that image, and it's nice. Okay, so you get the idea there on how to change your settings. This has gone on a bit longer than I expected, 15 minutes, but you can always go back and refer to this. So I hope that explains some of the settings for you, and if you have any questions, give me a shout.